And welcome back to centralcoastradio.com. Well, you've probably noticed on our Subculture website over the last week or so that a brand new trailer has gone up for a film called Frank and Frank, or The Valley and the Walrus, Ruminations on the Mystery from Soup to Nuts. It sounds like a strange film, so we thought, you know what, we want to know a little bit more about this film, so we actually thought we would get the writer-director Adam Morris on the phone right now to chat a little bit about this film. Welcome to the program, Adam, and thank you so much for joining us from Bali.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
So, mate, tell us a little bit about Frank and Frank, because I know a lot of people out there have got a lot of questions about this film. So, tell us a little bit about the film itself.
The film itself, it's a character story between two men. We call it a platonic love story hiding inside a comedy. So it's one of those films, kind of like there's an old film from the 80s called Whitnell and I, and there's another one called Local Hero, and there's another one called Midnight Run with Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro, and they're like buddy films without the violence and without the guns and that kinds of thing. So we tried to make a film about two men who, it's a friendship movie basically. There's not many of them out there, so that's kind of the angle that we're going for with this one.
And the characters themselves, they're interesting characters. One is a faith and finance guru, and the other one is an artist and a little bit of a womanizer. Tell us a little bit about where that general concept came from for the two guys. Are they based on people that you know?
Well, they actually could be the same person at different stages of their lives. They also could not be, Dave. So I'm not 100% sure. Frank one, who's the faith and finance guru, he's leading a very kind of traditional life with a family, and he teaches personal finance through lessons from the Old Testament. So he's living, a very conservative kind of traditional life. And then you have Frank 2, played by Trevor Jameson, and he had that life years and years ago. So now he's living a very different, very off the grid kind of life in lots of different ways, morally, and physically himself. So it could have been the same person 10 years apart, meeting themselves in the middle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And because our budgets are so low, David, we have to really rely on character. So I tried to make these two guys as interesting, and two guys that you haven't seen before on film. So try and get as much cliche as out of the films, and as much interesting stuff as we can in there. And that begins with the characters.
So where did the idea first come about for you? Like, is this an idea that you've had in your head for a while?
No, not necessarily. We're planning on making 10 films over 10 years in Albany in Western Australia. Albany is a small town 500 kilometres south of Perth. So I just need to come up with ideas that can fit into a small, structured kind of feature film. So the ideas come. There's no shortage of ideas, so I haven't been sitting on this for like 10 years or anything. It was just like, all right, we need to. Last year we made a love story or a love story that kind of died, and then so this time around this year we had to be something different, but we still have to only have two characters. So it just felt right, David. So that's what we went with Frank and Frank.
I love knowing where I'm going to shoot something, like whether it be a TV show or a film, because I think it helps with my script writing process, because I can think, well, I know if I need a church, I know there's a church there and things like that, and I can write with those things in mind. Did you find that when you were writing Frank and Frank, knowing that it was going to be filmed in Albany, did that actually help with the screenwriting process?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to the budget parameters are so tight on these films, you really have to write with the budget in mind. So, like some of this is filmed. We live in Albany, so this is where we live. If we lived in a English tenement housing project, that's where the films would be made. But we happen to live in a really nice part of Australia, so everything is written with the budget in mind. It's kind of like building it's like designing a house with a really tight budget.
Yep.
You just make the most of everything that you can get your hands on. So, very much it was written with all the locations in mind.
Do you enjoy writing with that parameter there of the budget, or do you find yourself sometimes writing a scene and then going, oh, I don't think we can film that? How do you find that?
Yeah, it's weirdly freeing in a way, David, because you have to. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. It's like if you have only 4 outfits in your wardrobe, you can only choose a certain amount of combinations before you have to go out for dinner. So it's freeing in a sense. You don't get overwhelmed with all the possibilities of the world. So you kind of make those choices of where it's going to be set and how many people are going to be in it early, and then you can just focus on playing with those characters within those settings. So in a sense, it gets rid of those decisions early because you only have a few to make. So in that sense, it's actually, I think it's probably good for the creative process.
You've got 2 amazing guys playing the 2 Franks as well, with Trevor Jamieson and Miles Pollard. Did you write the roles with those guys in mind, or did they come onto the project down the track?
No, they came after. They came after I gave the script to Ian Hale, who's the co-producer and distributor through Halo Films. He suggested we ask Miles and Trevor. So no, they weren't. They weren't. I didn't write it with them in mind at all. So Trevor's character in my head was just a white guy. So I'd love to take credit to say, I had Trevor in mind, but no, I didn't. But he did such an incredible job. So it's amazing that we got Miles and Trevor for the roles.
What was that like when you were vetting those 2 as well? Like, when you first sat down, of course, you would have had these characters firmly in your mind, what they were like. What was that like, sitting down with an actor with the experience of Miles Pollard in line for the role?
You're always everything's a gamble, David. So you're always thinking, I wonder what these guys are going to come and bring to these characters. But then when you're dealing with guys who are as talented as Miles and Trevor, the odds kind of shorten in your favor. So there's less kind of panic and fear about how they're going to do it, and then there's just an interest in to see how they're going to do it. And they're both kind of very different. Trevor is a very instinctual, emotional kind of an actor, where he kind of feels his way through into the character. And Miles is a very cerebral kind of an actor who just thinks a hell of a lot about what he's doing, and he's so talented. Like, he's a product of NIDA, which is arguably in the top 5 acting schools in the world. So you know he's going to be good when he gets here, but you just don't know how it's going to manifest. And then you just kind of go with the flow of what these actors bring, and if you just trust that they're going to be good. And thank God that they were.
Yeah,
they were absolutely amazing.
And what was the shoot itself like? Like you said, you worked with a very, very small budget. So what was the shoot like itself?
The shoot was initially it was only 3 weeks. So we had Trevor for 2 weeks. We had Miles for about 2.5, maybe 2 weeks and 5 days. And then we had Rebecca Leaf, who plays Miles's wife. We only had her for 1 day, so it was extremely, extremely tight. And then during the film, my partner Talara, who's also the editor of the film, her father passed away, so we had to kind of postpone the last third of the filming, and then we came back to we shot the last week just with Miles. It's just very intense, David. It's a lot of concentration, and it only works if everyone who's involved understands how limited it is and how on we need everyone to be. So that means that the actors need to be prepared. Otherwise, it just won't work. We won't be able to do it. So again, luckily, Trevor, Miles, and Rebecca were all just incredibly prepared, and we were able to shoot the film, literally in just about 2.5 weeks, pretty much.
Awesome. So The film is coming out in July. Is there anything you would like to say to our listeners out there before they go to see the film at all?
No, not really, David. It's yeah, like I said, there's no car chases and there's no one flies in the movie. So if you want to watch one of those, it's not one of those. But yeah, the feedback we're getting is people are finding the film kind of refreshing. So the characters are making the audience think, and the audience seems to be really enjoying. Seems to be enjoying that.
You also mentioned before that you're filming 10 of these films. How far along are you with the next one?
So we are a very, very small amount of money away from greenlighting our third feature film, which is Frederickstown. And that's going to be a crime Australian gangster movie that we're shooting again down here in Albany, and that's going to star Peter Rosethorn and Travis Jeffrey, and Miles is coming back and Trevor's coming back as well to be a part of that. So yeah, we're very close. All the pre-production's done, the script's done, the locations are all done. We literally just need a very, very small bag of money to, and it is a really small bag of money, but we just need that to greenlight it. So hopefully we'll get there in the next month or so.
Awesome. Well, Adam, we'll let you get back to enjoying Bali. We hope a lot of our listeners will go and check out Frank and Frank, and of course all of those details about where it's screening will be up on our website as well. But Adam, thank you so much for taking time out of your holiday to chat to us today.
Oh, my pleasure, David. Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.